Episode 20, Whispers of the Forgotten. Days passed, and Black Hollow seemed to exhale a long-held breath. Life resumed its rhythm, and the townspeople went about their routines with a lightness they hadn't felt in years. For Eli and Evelyn, however, things hadn't entirely returned to normal. Even with the heart sealed and the silent circle driven into hiding, they could sense something lingering, a faint echo that kept drawing them back to the darker corners of Black Hollow. One evening, Evelyn found herself at the town's library, flipping through Clara's tome. The old, leather-bound book was silent now, its once flickering pages still and unresponsive, as if it too had fallen into a deep slumber after the final ritual. But Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that there were layers to the book she hadn't yet uncovered. Eli joined her later, sliding into the seat beside her with a steaming cup of tea in hand. "Anything new?" he asked, glancing over her shoulder at the familiar pages. "Not really," she replied, but her finger traced over a section she had read countless times. "It's strange. There are references here to rituals, locations, and even people that Clara never mentioned. It's like she wanted us to find them after everything else." Eli frowned, following her gaze to a faintly sketched map on the corner of one page. "You think it's another piece of the puzzle? Something Clara wanted us to see only after the heart was sealed?" Evelyn nodded thoughtfully. "It's possible. Look here, this map shows part of the town, but there's something that doesn't make sense." She pointed to an area marked with an unfamiliar symbol that didn't correspond to any current landmark. "There's no building there now, just an empty field. But here, it's clearly labeled as a sanctum." Eli's brows knitted together. "Sanctum? Do you think it's a place tied to the heart's past?" "Maybe," Evelyn said, her eyes narrowing as she studied the map. "Or maybe it's where the heart's influence first began." Clara never spoke much about the heart's origin, just that it was bound to Black Hollow. Maybe this sanctum was where that binding first took place. An eerie chill filled the library as they exchanged a glance. They'd thought they'd uncovered all there was to know about the heart, but if there was another layer, a hidden history, they had no choice but to investigate. The next morning, they met near the spot marked on the map, a quiet, overgrown field on the outskirts of town. The grass was tall and unkempt, littered with stones that seemed to form the remains of a foundation long buried by time. The air was still, but there was a palpable tension, as if the earth itself was holding on to a secret it refused to share. "Are you sure this is the place?" Eli asked, his voice low as he surveyed the desolate field. Evelyn held up the map, squinting to match their surroundings to the faded drawing. "It has to be. Look at the stone patterns. They match the lines on the map exactly." They walked carefully over the ground, their footsteps crunching on brittle, dried grass. As they moved toward the center, they began to notice faint symbols carved into some of the stones, symbols that bore an uncanny resemblance to the ones they'd seen in the church. Eli crouched down, brushing dirt off one of the symbols. "These markings, they're ancient. They're different from the ones we've seen before, but they feel connected." Evelyn shivered, glancing around. The entire field felt like a place frozen in time, untouched by the world around it. This could be the original site of the heart's binding. Maybe even where it was first discovered. As she spoke, a strange sensation washed over her, a feeling of being watched. She turned, scanning the empty field, but there was no one else in sight. Yet the sense of a presence lingered, as though something was hidden just beyond their vision, observing them from the shadows. They heard a low hum then, a faint vibration that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. Eli looked around, alarmed. "Do you hear that?" Evelyn nodded, her heart racing. "It's coming from under us." Before they could react, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and they stumbled back as a deep fissure appeared, a crack in the earth that spread rapidly, revealing a set of stone stairs leading down into darkness. They exchanged a wary glance, the gravity of the discovery sinking in. This must be the sanctum," Eli murmured, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and dread. Evelyn took a deep breath, steeling herself. "There's only one way to find out." They descended the stairs, their footsteps echoing in the confined space. The air grew colder as they went deeper, and a damp, earthy scent filled their nostrils. At the bottom of the stairs, they found themselves in a chamber lined with ancient stone walls, etched with symbols and markings that seemed older than anything they'd encountered before. In the center of the room lay a stone pedestal, and on it, a strange, dark object that looked like a small heart carved from black stone. It pulsed faintly, almost as if alive, emitting a soft glow that cast eerie shadows on the walls. Evelyn approached it cautiously, her breath hitching as she examined the object. This is another heart," she whispered, horror dawning in her eyes. "Or at least, a piece of one." Eli's eyes widened, his gaze fixed on the object. "Then the heart we sealed wasn't the only one?" As if in response to his words, the stone heart began to glow brighter, its pulsing intensifying. A low, whispering voice filled the chamber, speaking in a language they couldn't understand. The sound grew louder, reverberating off the walls and filling their minds with an unbearable weight. Evelyn clutched her head, fighting the urge to flee. "We need to get out of here," she gasped, panic rising in her voice. But before they could turn, the chamber door slammed shut, and the whispers grew louder, forming words they could barely comprehend. "The seal is broken. The darkness awakens." Eli's face went pale as he realized what was happening. "This isn't a sanctum, it's a prison." They backed away from the stone heart, their minds racing. They had to escape, but the walls around them seemed to close in, the darkness pressing down on them with a suffocating intensity. The whispers continued, a chorus of voices calling out to them, beckoning them deeper into the shadows. Desperate, Evelyn reached for the pendant Clara had given her, clutching it tightly as she whispered a prayer. The whispers faltered, the voices recoiling from the pendant's faint glow. Taking advantage of the momentary silence, she pulled Eli toward the door, trying to force it open with all her strength. The door resisted, but with a final shove, it gave way, and they stumbled back into the open air, gasping for breath. The whispers faded as they moved further from the chamber, but a dark energy clung to them, as though they had brought a piece of the sanctum's shadow with them. They reached the edge of the field, their hearts racing, a silent understanding passing between them. They had uncovered something far older and more powerful than the heart they had sealed, an ancient darkness bound to Black Hollow, waiting for its moment to break free. As they walked back to town, Evelyn looked at Eli, her face grim. "If there are more pieces of the heart, more sanctums like that one, then this isn't over. We didn't just find the origin of the heart, we found something that was meant to stay forgotten." Eli nodded, a chill settling over him. "Whatever that thing is, it's connected to Black Hollow in ways we still don't understand. And if it's waking up..." They both knew what he didn't say. They might be the town's only defense against a force beyond their understanding, but as they looked back at the field, they felt the weight of the ancient shadows lurking in the sanctum beneath. They had opened a door that could never be closed again, a door that led to a darkness as old as the town itself. End of episode 20.